So, Tony, I think if I recall, we may have met a while back when I was doing the programs for American University for the IG, and I think you actually spoke at one of those programs. So I think that's how we got to know each other, and then through LinkedIn, et cetera. So I think I've encountered you on many occasions with all the incredible work that you do. So I was delighted to have you as a guest today to share some of your leadership story and some of your leadership lessons, because I know you have such a repertoire of them. But I wanted to ask you, just for people who don't know you, can
Sure,
you tell us a little bit about your role and what you do? So we'll start out with that.
sure. And I'll just dive in again. I've been a big fan of yours through the many programs that you offer to the federal government and especially the IG community. I think it's a very valuable service. To dive into, my role and what I'm up to. So currently, I serve as a program director with the Office of Inspector General in the U.S. Department of Transportation. I'm based in the Washington, D.C. office. I've been in this role since 2009. So in this position, I provide strategic direction for the organization. I also, part of that job description, I lead audit teams that conduct audits on diverse programs ranging from, excuse me, looking at its workforce, how it plans and manages grants and acquisitions, as well as how it oversees major investments. As an example, several of my teams are very actively engaged currently conducting reviews related to the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act that passed in
Right.
2021. This is a huge once in a lifetime infusion of funding to the department of roughly $620 billion over the next 5 years. So several of my teams, in addition to other OIG units, are overseeing that work. A couple of other projects that my teams completed in the recent years, just to paint a picture of my portfolio.
Yeah.
For example, my teams completed reviews of the department's $10 billion high-speed rail program across the country. My teams have also audited DOT's capital planning and investment control processes for high-risk IT investments, which value roughly $3 to $4 billion. And I know the FAA has been in the news a lot lately. Some of my teams audited a portfolio of contracts of a little over $1 billion being used to modernize the air traffic control system. Part of what I see as my success, and this dovetails nicely with the leadership principles here today, is building coalitions and serving as an effective ambassador for my organization. This involves, developing coalitions and strategic relationships with executives across the department, congressional staff, and through these interactions, myself and my teams, we provide insights for decision making, and also at the end of our projects, we present recommendations to the department to enhance their operations. I'm also very actively involved in stewardship projects across my agency and the federal IG community related to process reengineering, fostering diversity and inclusion in the workplace, staff development and hiring, and mentoring, which I'm very passionate about also.
Wow. It's interesting as you describe all that. You sit back and you think, wow, there's so much there. And also what I'm struck by as you talk, Tony, is that and we'll talk about this a little bit later, right? The paradox of also being a compliance function and having this oversight type of job, and leading this oversight team, and yet the practice of building relationships and the ethical component. There's so much there in this just the role that you have. So let me ask you this. So how did you get here? How did you go into inspector general and leading all of these teams?
Oh, definitely.
So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Sure. So the nutshell is, I've spent the vast part of my career in the, federal accountability community and doing public service. Two key experiences that were very helpful to me in forming my leadership compass. Two I'd like to talk about. First, as a teenager, I was involved in scouting and earned the rank of Eagle Scout.
Mm.
People don't equate that with leadership necessarily,
Oh,
but for
no,
me, it
definitely.
was very much so. And for me, in that experience, I developed building blocks that I carry forward to this day. Old-fashioned things like hard work, confidence, leadership, commitment to the community.
A lot of people don't even know about the Eagle Scouts, but that is such a big accomplishment. First of all, the perseverance to get to that, and all of the values and ethics that are encompassed in achieving something like that.
I believe the stat across scouting nationwide, roughly only 4% attain that rank. And I like to take leadership examples from other individuals, and
Yeah.
just from following people in high level positions in business and industry and other sectors, I've come across my share that have attained that rank. So again, that has been a very formative experience for me.
Yeah.
Second piece that, again, in my earlier years that was very influential was the rigorous education that I received while earning my undergraduate degree at the University of Scranton, which is in case people don't know, a Catholic Jesuit university that's in my hometown of Scranton, PA. Part of their teaching is the pursuit of excellence, but it needs to be matched with gratitude. Second piece is respect for all. And the last two pieces include, and this relates to my public service career, a service to others and a promotion of justice.
If you take those three things that you just said, I mean, think about those values and those other, I mean, they're universal, right? And that is so I don't know, profound on some level if we all behaved in that matter. And the challenge is not saying those words, Tony, but it's also embodying them, right?
Oh, exactly.
That's what it sounds like you're talking about, is embodying those things versus just saying them on a piece of paper.
Yeah, and it goes to that cliche we've heard a million times: you need to walk the talk with all these things.
Yeah.
After graduate school, I began work with the U.S. Government Accountability Office. And honestly, at the time, I didn't know that much about the organization, but coming out of grad school, I liked the fact that it was an analytical position. It was in the public service sector. So in my career there, I worked on reviews and audits dealing with, GAO oversees the whole federal budget, and my portfolio included everything from Defense Department acquisitions to cradle and grave programs run by Social Security Administration and the Labor Department. With GAO, for me, it was a great learning experience, and I developed many skills there. And near the end of my career there, or about midway roughly, I advanced to a manager position there, and that brings my job description up to my current position with the .OIG today.
So what did you learn about leadership along this journey?
The first and foremost, and again, a lot of these I learned by trial and error, just being thrown into situations, but a key thing that I've learned along the way, that as leaders, we're always in the spotlight, and you need to always lead by example. One of my early managers famously would always remind me, Tony, the second you step off that elevator on your floor, you need to pack away as much as you can, whatever things you might be dealing with, and bring your, work game leadership face to the office.
This is another really big one, because intuitively people keep saying, well, you need to be your authentic self. But what you're saying, Tony, and I think this is so profound, is that you're also the role.
Oh, exactly.
And so it's not just about what Tony wants to convey, it's also about what the role needs. And there's a balance there. That's what I hear from what you say.
Right. And as a leader, while you're yourself and you're the individual, you're always representing the organization, and that just amplifies why you need to be a good role model in those positions. A second point that I again, learned by trial and error over the years is, just the importance of being flexible and agile. Many of people probably have heard the Bruce Lee saying you need to be like water, but in case people haven't, the principle of that is, with water, it takes, many shapes it adapts to its situations. It could be a raging river, like imagine the Mississippi River, or it could be, a glass of water contained in your cup here. So when things don't work out as leaders or for your teams, which happens, on occasion, it's important to be responsive to those changes. And if you have the ability as a leader to help prepare your teams with plan Bs, if you will, to address those situations. So just being flexible and agile and realizing that you're not going to control everything. That's an unrealistic thing, but to, as long as you keep making forward progress, that's a great goal. Another kind of related to this principle of leading by example is that as a leader, you really need to bring constant optimism to your teams and people and to the organization. While it's appropriate at times to show, I feel, humility in situations to, share thoughts and things, I think at the end of the day, as a leader, you need to show that optimism because you're the one, again, that people are looking to help lead the organization through challenges and struggles.
Well, your emotions
Sure.
are contagious. Exactly.
Oh, exactly.
And so how you are coming across, I mean, and that's actually proven, right? So that
Right.
our emotions, there's that concept called emotional contagion where, we're feeling something, other people feel that. And if you're sending that vibe, really is what you're saying is, what vibe do you want to send?
Exactly. Yes. And then very early in leadership positions, I again went through growing pains and some trial and error in terms of realizing, you can no longer be in the trenches with your team doing all the work. You're in a different role. You're leading and directing the team, providing strategic advice, things like that. Again, through trial and error in early leadership positions, I've learned to find that sweet spot of, leading and directing and being sufficiently removed, but not too far removed from the work in order to effectively empower teams for success.
So how did you learn to navigate that?
Well, for me, part of my kind of natural toolkit is I'm a over communicator. So when I moved into management positions, one key thing I focused on was building, getting to know what my subordinates and team members, what made them tick, what work they like to do, were they morning people, late people, things like that. So through doing that upfront work and kind of learning what makes people tick, I learned what their capabilities were. When I first became a manager, I shared with people that I was leading, and some of these were a bit sticky situations, but some people had competed for the same promotions that I received. But through building those trusting relationships, I think that's a key piece of all this. And also in some of these settings, I acknowledged with the teams I was leading that, I'm new to this. I have a plan for everybody's success to move us forward. And by kind of making everybody on the team a partner in success, that helped make those practices effective. And of course, it didn't all run smoothly like I'm describing it now.
Right.
And I think overall, for me, that was a good kind of a blueprint to build that, effective delegation skills. And I think the one practice I started long ago that I, keep to this very day with my managers of different teams is we have weekly one-on-one meetings at the beginning of the week where we talk through the whole A to Z of how are the projects going, how are you doing personally, and offering help and empathy to them in those situations. And I would say that, again, at a tactical level, any like new or even experienced leaders, because I know some senior people don't always do this,
Right.
having
Oh, it's
building in and making that time to have one-on-one talks with your managers. To me, that's a non-discussable thing that everyone should
great.
try to do. I would say a last point for me, this was a big learning piece, was finding and keeping a good mentor.
Mm.
So, and what I mean by that, to again, I wish I worked on earlier in my career, but I think everybody needs somebody who, if it's within the organization, to help you show the ropes, the company culture, give you heads up on personalities to how you may have to work with them in certain ways, things like that. And again, a fair share of my learning has been by trial and error, I think. And had I had the benefit of a mentor earlier in my career, I think I may have avoided some missteps. I found, from different collateral projects I worked on, I formed relationships with several senior leaders, and they were kind enough to, when Tony came knocking on the door seeking advice, to, for me to bounce off ideas, to, tap into their wisdom and experience, which helped me along the way. So with a lot of organizations now, and including like my organization, the OIG in the DOT, they have a formal mentoring program where, on a periodic basis, announcements are put out for mentors and mentees, and then they go through a matching process. And I've been participating in that numerous years, which is really helpful. On the, federal IG community wide, there's a group called the Council of Inspector Generals on Efficiency and Integrity. That body they're in the second year of their government-wide IG mentoring program. I'm participating in that program for the second year. And in the second year, I'm a bit more hands-on in terms of helping, for example, helping participate in a training program for mentors, which again,
Right.
this is really easy for me to do because I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
And also I'm serving as a mentor. And one thing I wears a different badge of honor, if you will, is over the years, individuals that I've served as a mentor, we still maintain contact, and it's great to, hear stories about their successes, and to, even though like the formal relationship of mentoring ended, to be able to hear those stories and share, any tidbits or advice
Right.
that they might need. So I think
Yeah, and that what you're saying right there, I think is important for people to understand, and for anybody listening, that you have to seek it out or take advantage of the opportunity if there's
right,
a formal program. And if you are a mentor, also offer your mentorship. And what I find, Tony, is that most people are flattered when they're asked to be a mentor, when somebody says, hey, will you help me with this, etc. So,
sure,
and you won't know unless you ask. So,
definitely.
so there's so much richness in all of what you just said. Okay, so you talk about mentors. What's the best piece of career advice you ever got?
First is the saying again that it's has been out there a lot, but it's the concept of leaders speaking last. And
Mm-hmm.
what I mean by that and how I interpret that is, as a leader, part of my communication style is being a very active leader. I find that by, for example, whether it's an individual meeting with one of my managers or a team meeting with a bunch of people, I like to, let the group discuss, have gnash their teeth on what the challenge we're working on, get everybody's input. And sometimes I may chime in at the end, sometimes I may not. And I try to refrain from, unless something's totally crazy mentioned,
Right.
refrain from engaging, because I want to hear people's thoughts and opinions. And for me, over my career, I find that that's a very valuable way, to build engagement amongst people. And part of one of my favorite three words in, again, like when I speak at the end of meetings, is to say, tell me more.
Yes.
Sometimes people are, you know, you get all types in meetings. You have the extroverts, the introverts who may need to have things pulled out a bit, but through kind of that following leader speak last approach, I found that I've been very effective in leading and motivating teams, and also, generating ideas to deal with some of the thorny issues that I mentioned in my job description up above.
That's such a big nugget right there. Those three words, tell me more. I think we don't pause. We just think a lot about what we want to say next versus pausing and listening to that. So those tell me more are magic words, I think. Just like, so one of mine is tell me more, say more about that.
Right.
Yeah, it's the same thing, right? Tell me more, say more about that. You're really sitting there on receive with no judgment attached to listen to what the person wants to
Exactly.
say. And you also hear more about what's really happening. So that's a really great piece of advice there. Now, I could talk to you all day, Tony, here, and I have a lot of questions to ask you, and we only have so much time, so I'm going to condense my questions and
Sure.
ask you, what advice do you have for people who want to be more effective as leaders?
Advice. The two things I'd focus on, and these are a little bit of a repeat of earlier points, first one is to know your people, and the second is to practice humility. The first is, every individual is different. As a leader, you need to invest time in learning, what makes people tick, what their strengths and weaknesses are, what type of work they like to do. I feel that as a leader, you won't be very successful if you don't, build up and support your people. And from, getting to know them generally, having, deep discussions with them, not superficial discussions about, where is deliverable X or Y, but really having deep talks to get to know them and support them is critical. The second piece here is, one thing before moving to the second piece, I like to follow what, in the literature is called the platinum rule. I know we've all, growing up, heard the golden rule of, do as to others as you would like to be done to you. The platinum rule in short verse here is, treat others as they would like to be treated. So for me, that principle encompasses that first point of knowing your people. A second key piece here that I feel is critical to be successful is to practice humility. I think around the office and with individuals, I always tell people that some people view this as a weakness. I think it could be a leader's superpower, because, and at the end of the day, when you do that, you're just being honest and frank with people about what you know and don't know. By doing that, acknowledging that you don't have all the answers, I found that that's a powerful way to build engagement. To, again, if a leader, if you walk into a meeting and say, I want to do X, Y, and Z, help me do that. And if you're fudging a bit, people can sense authenticity. I found that if you go into meetings with more humility, presenting the challenge to people, letting people talk through it, acknowledging that, this could be a tough challenge. We may not solve it this week or next week, but by having that, showing that you need the team support to get things done, I find that that's a very helpful way to get success.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice there. As you're talking, I'm thinking, Tony, I can't let you go. I have another question for you, but I can't let you go without asking you this question, because I think the type of role you're in is such an interesting one, because think about it, it's compliance, right? And you can think, and it's oversight. And so you're basically auditing people on
Right.
some level, right? Of, checking them. And so that must be a difficult one to navigate, developing teams that, again, it's all about people, right? And trying to give people the benefit of the doubt. And so we won't get into the intricacies of all that.
Right.
But what do you think are the qualities that are important to do that type of work and lead that type of work effectively?
Sure. I mean, there's numerous skills that are critical for that, but just to talk through a couple, I would say, communication and collaboration are key. For example, in the oversight work I lead with my teams, I emphasize that, again, we're part of the organizations we audit. We're not there to do gotcha work, just to point out flaws, but to be, again, as stewards of government resources at the end of the day, to be helpful to them to improve their programs. And so I instill that with my teams, and again, to be, good communicators and mindful and respectful in all their agencies with the department. For example, whenever we do these reviews and audits, it's taking away time from agency people to do their regular job. So that's a big factor that, like with the teams, they, need to show good communications and empathy with the disruption you're providing or causing to their organization. On a bit of a higher tactical level, if you will, one thing I've done since joining this office here was helping to establish collaboration mechanisms between my managers and myself and senior officials within the department. And I've helped set up, we call them quarterly collaboration or partnership meetings from the secretarial level with FAA officials, and also within my portfolio now, a big agency is the Federal Highway Administration, which is the second largest component in the department. Through those partnership meetings, where as auditors, we do various things. We demystify how we do the audit work, which helps build
Education.
operation. We help discuss projects that we could start that could help their needs. And I think, everything's a work in progress, but by initiating those types of activities, I feel that my teams have been able to collect better and more information, and have been ultimately more successful in their work with the department.
Yeah, and that what you're describing is really continuous learning, right? It's creating more of a learning organization, a mindset of learning versus a mindset of gotcha. Last thing I'm going to ask you, what's an inspirational quote or motto that you'd like to share with this audience as your parting words?
Sure. Well, I don't know if it would be okay to share another personal experience and then slide in the
Sure.
quickly.
Sure.
So one, I appreciate the opportunity to do this, but I know one of the topics that could be of interest to individuals is, leadership development challenges and things like that. And not many people are aware of this, but one of my challenges has been leading with a disability. As a neurodiverse individual, I appreciate the chance to talk about this and be, a good role model for leadership. And this week marks the 33rd anniversary with the Americans with Disabilities Act. And I think if I had a moment, I think that there is a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings about neurodiverse individuals. Myself and others.
And I'm going to stop you there, Tony, because
Sure.
I know what that is. Not everybody knows what that word is, what that word means. So can you
Sure.
explain that to
Oh,
listening, just so that people understand? 'Cause we use those words.
okay.
But not everybody knows what that is. So
Sure. Oh, no worries. Thank you for pausing. So neurodiversity is a, intellectual disability. It's what, some individuals refer to as a hidden disability or, invisible disability. where basically, in plain English, what that means is, in some parts of your brain, it's wired slightly differently than quote unquote normal people. So you bring a different perspective and worldview to things. And I believe in my, career and current position, this has helped me be very successful in my role. Key attributes of neurodiverse individuals, include, high empathy, high analytical skills, innovation and creativity. And something I practice and really respect is loyalty to the organization. On the other token of that is there can be, leading with some type of a disability like this can be tough because of the stigma attached, and individuals who, may compare this to another visible disability may discount it, or there may be, again, stigma attached to it. I feel that my advice to individuals who are neurodiverse is, to stay true to yourself, be persistent in reaching your goals. And over my career, I've had some success, in achieving, my career and my goals without the need for accommodations and things like that. So I feel that has been a big success. On the other hand, I've had a few downsides, and even in my own organization, I've had situations, for example, during a promotion process where I was mocked because my verbal delivery style came across as scripted. And again, I appreciate a chance to share a bit about that, because I think it's one of those underknown or underrepresented things in the federal workforce. And I believe that I view myself, again, my earlier remarks dealt with being a role model and leading by example. And I appreciate a chance to, share a bit of that personal story to, to help enlighten the field a little bit here.
No, I'm so glad you did. And I think, that was one of the questions I was going to ask you was challenges. And I think this is a big one. And I just would ask you, how have you been able to weather that, knowing this, right? So whether these impressions or these misunderstandings or whatever, do you educate people? I mean, what have you done? Because obviously it takes, personal courage to speak up.
Right. Well, what I've tried to do involves a number of things. One, again, earlier I talked about, my mentoring. Through those activities, I've, by good fortune, I believe, have been paired up with individuals, like through mentoring and building some trust, have shared that they have the same disability. So I feel that in those situations, I, kind of won the mentoring lottery, because I was able to share some of my experiences with this, which helped others. And I feel that, again, through explaining, to be honest, it's something that I've been guarded about sharing, just because of the people don't understand it. There's a stigma. People kind of, I guess, jump to conclusions thinking the worst about things like this, when in fact, I think, like I mentioned earlier, believe that this is a skill set I bring in addition to my other skills that help me be very successful. And so I've, in addition to like helping people like at an individual level, I've also been involved and have been supportive of various disability groups that specialize in intellectual disabilities. So I feel that both on a personal level and, sharing some of my stories at a bit of a higher level, that I know change in this area is a very slow thing to come about, but I feel that, again, like a lot of my leadership principles, that this is an obligation that I, should share.
But think about how important that is, just you sharing your story, because I think first of all, what it does is it also helps educate people, right? Because I think there's an education process in all of this about everything. I mean, I think we talk about diversity a lot, yet we have such a long way to go. And there are so many aspects to it. And I think you bring up one that so many people don't really even think about. They don't even like give the benefit of the doubt or think about inclusion in a different way.
Right.
I think you sharing your story is so powerful, Tony, because it allows people to perhaps take a pause and think a little bit differently.
Right.
So I think it's big.
I appreciate that. I'm involved in many activities, again, like recruiting, hiring, et cetera, that have fostered diversity and inclusion in my office and other places. And the way I view it is it's very, very much like a multifaceted crystal with many aspects. Like you said, there's many parts of this. And again, as part of the meeting here today, I appreciate the chance to share a bit of that, and hopefully
I think it's great. I think we don't talk about these things enough. And I also think we I don't know, we're trying to sometimes fit people into certain norms or certain boxes or whatever. And I think what you're enlightening today, I think it's really big, is that we all come in different boxes. And the boxes,
exactly.
There is no box, right? And so, throw away the box and start looking at leadership a little bit differently, and also looking at humans a little bit differently. I mean, and that's a whole other thing that we could spend the whole day talking about. So
that could be part 2, right?
Yeah, it could be part 2. Yeah, no, but thank you for sharing that, because I think it's really, really helpful. So do you have an inspirational quote or a motto?
Sure. Okay, so inspirational quote. So I'm a fan, and favorite quote of mine is from Jim Valvano, the former North Carolina State coach. It goes, "Don't give up, don't ever give up." And I find that to be very inspirational. For me, it applies to, work situations, personal things, family situations. And for me, that's, again, a very inspirational piece, because it's, only 7 words, but again, it's very powerful and concise in its impact. And I'm a fan of, his motivational and leadership principles. And I've, in some of when I first started getting into LinkedIn, I've included some of his, he has great videos that are very motivational out there in terms of,
I should check those out. Yeah.
Living life, enjoying life, and just kind of very much embodies the carpe diem approach to things, which I think we should all try to do.
I love it. And it also goes back to your perseverance theme from the beginning, right? The Eagle Scout and the persevering and going forward. So I love it. Don't never give up. I love that. Yes. Say the quote again for us.
Sure. Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
There's a lot to be said about that. So thank you so much, Tony, for blessing us.
Thank you. This was a pleasure.
Yeah, with your presence today and such incredible words of wisdom. I'm so grateful that you were able to be with us today.
Awesome. Thank you so much.